We're starting Be'ezras Hashem, Vayoel Moshe, Maamar Shalosh, Siman Tes. And the subject is, first of all, to wrap up what we've been saying in the last few Simanim, that we had a kasha in the first Siman on Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says it's also to go from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, right? So the question was, that has that shtim with the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Akol Malin, that a husband could force a wife, and a wife could force a husband to go up there to Israel. So how does Rabbi Yehuda and the Moyer have the right to be cholik on a Mishnah and say that you're not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael? Yeah? So now we're finally coming to answer up that question. So let's begin in Siman Tes. Nachzor le'inyaneinu. Let's go back to our subject. The loy kasha midi al Rabbi Yehuda. It's not a kasha at all on Rabbi Yehuda. Mihach masnisin u'brayis dakol malin. From the law that you're allowed to force a husband or wife to go up to Eretz Yisrael. The loy miboy l'das ha'maram. It's for sure not a problem according to the Maram in Rottenburg. The masnisin u'brayis loy ma'iri el bisman hamikdash, because he holds that the Mishnah of Hakol Malin is only talking bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim, right? Bisman is there. He holds only the husband could force the wife, not the wife could force the husband. And we explained why that was in the previous Simanim. But Al Kopanim, you see that the Mishnah is not talking at all times.
Yeah, because the Mishnah does write the law, it doesn't apply for all times.
Right. So now that we see that, we can go one step further and say that Rabbi Yehuda will say the Mishnah completely doesn't apply Bisman Hazeh. Yes. He's saying, Rabbi Meir Rottenberg is saying that the Mishnah applies only Bisman Shebeis Mikdash Kayim. Bisman Hazeh, it's different. It didn't change. It's still there, but it changed.
Because the Mishnah usually doesn't state applies Bisman Hazeh or not.
Yeah.
Because the Mishnah was written just to record the Torah Shofet, not to give out the halacha.
Yeah, but usually Mishnayos apply Bisman Hazeh, unless they're talking about Kadshim, Beis Hamikdash, things like that. But if they're talking about something that could apply today, like Ksuvas, Masechta Ksuvas, usually almost everything Masechta Ksuvas applies today too. So there's no reason to suspect. That's why he had to spend 9 Siman improving this. Really, there's no reason to suspect on just by looking at the Mishnah that it's not talking Bisman Hazeh.
Right, so Ksubos, you would reasonably therefore think, that it applies Bisman Hazeh, because Ksubos write about things Bisman Hazeh.
Right, you would think that, but now that he's proven that Rabbi Meir Rottenberg doesn't hold that way, he holds that the din changed. So now we have the license to say that maybe Rabbi Yehuda will also hold the din changed. Okay, Eino in klal. So he says that's not relevant at all with Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda's din. Deloi ma'iri el bisman habayis, because Rabbi Yehuda is only talking in the time of bisman hagolus, bisman of the exile. Even according to the Tur, Shechoylek al Maram disagrees with the Meir Rottenberg, and he says that a husband and wife could both force each other even today. But he says, Kosav Atam Dei Ma'iri Bisman Hazeh Lama Koifin Oisa. He says that if Rabbi Yehuda is talking, not Rabbi Yehuda, if Meir Rottenberg would be talking Bisman Hazeh, the Yerushalmi really, it's coming from the Yerushalmi. So the Torah says, if that Yerushalmi would be talking during our times, nowadays, then he has Shver on the Meir Rottenberg, why should we force her? Nobody should be able to force anybody.
Yeah.
So he says, if you say that the Yerushalmi is talking Bisman Habayis, both should be able to force. Yeah. And if it's talking Bisman Hazeh, nobody should be able to force. But Al Kapanim, you see from this that he's willing to entertain that the Mishnah could be talking only Bisman Habayis. He says, if the Yerushalmi had not distinguished between husband and wife, he wouldn't have had a problem with distinguishing between the time of the Beis Hamikdash and the time of today. Yeah. It could be that Rabbi Yehuda loy mechalik klal bein ho'ish le'o'isha. Rabbi Yehuda just goes one step further. He says that Bisman Hazeh, the Mishnah doesn't apply, and he makes no distinction between husband and wife. He says nobody could force anybody to go up. The whole Mishnah is only talking Bisman HaMikdash, loy Bisman Hazeh. Okay? Even though this is the Yerushalmi, but the Chassam Sofer says the Bavli disagrees, and his proof is mitakasav hachdina be'eved bisman hazeh, from the fact that the Talmud Bavli brings the law of the slave forcing the master, and we paskin like it. Shulchan Aruch brings it down. V'gam haram eino mefarish kein el l'das Yerushalmi. The Chassam Sofer wants to say that even the Rabbi Rottenberg only said it in the Yerushalmi, but not in the Bavli. Milvad shaloi nira kain miloshen haram v'arosh. Besides the fact that it doesn't seem like this Chassam Sofer is correct. It seems like the Rabbi Rottenberg is talking even bisman hazeh, even according to the Bavli, according to this the way the Rosh brings it down. Aval af lefi dvarav, even according to him, the Chassam Sofer, who says that Rabbi Rottenberg is only talking in the Yerushalmi, and the Bavli disagrees. Still, ein kush yaklal in Rabbi Yehuda soiber ka Yerushalmi. We still have the Yerushalmi to rely on, so Rabbi Yehuda could hold like the Yerushalmi. Okay, avol kvar nisbar shedasa bei Shmuel shehevi shitas haram lefsak halacha hu nachon miyushav nikol akushis. In any case, he says we've explained that it's not shver what the Chassam Sofer asks, and the Beis Shmuel who brings down this Rabbi Rottenberg as halacha l'maisa fits with every place we can,
Wait, what did the Beis Shmuel say before?
The Beis Shmuel is the one who brought down in Shulchan Aruch, on the side of Shulchan Aruch, he brings down this din that the wife cannot force the husband bisman hazeh.
No, is that right?
And the Chassam Sofer said that's only the Rabbi Rottenberg, and it's only in the Yerushalmi, and the Bavli disagrees, so we don't paskin like it.
Right, so we paskin nobody can force your bisman hazeh.
Well, no, if I care, we paskin everybody can force bisman hazeh. Here, the Mishnah, right, the Bavli, in other words, it goes like this. The Mishnah says everybody can force.
Yeah.
We hold like that Mishnah even bisman hazeh. Rabbi Rottenberg downgrades it one step and he says only the husband can force the wife.
Yeah.
But we don't paskin like him, according to the Chassam Sofer. Beis Shmuel, yeah. And then the third shita is Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that the whole din doesn't apply bisman hazeh. Nobody can force anybody. But we don't hold like him. He's about to say that now. Next paragraph. Gam masha hiksha harif. This is what the Rabbi Yoshia Pinto, the Mefarish on the bottom of the Ein Yaakov, asks, that there's the member in the Gemara that someone who lives in Chutz La'aretz is as if he worships idols. So that kasha, he said that's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda, right? How could Rabbi Yehuda say it's also to go there to Yisrael? It's not allowed to stay in Chutz La'aretz. It's like worshipping idols. So we explained already that's not a kasha. Loi kasha midi the kvar nisbar she'ein zeh el bisman habayis. That whole statement about worshipping idols is only said during the Beis Hamikdash times, when it was a Jewish government. And if you go out to live under a Goyish government, then it's as if you're worshipping their idols. Yeah. For Rabbi Yehuda vaday the motzei savar kain. So once we explain that, even according to us, so Rabbi Yehuda can for sure hold that way, and he could hold that living in Chutz La'aretz is not equivalent to idol worship.
Yeah.
Omnam. So now he's going to say we paskin like Reb Zeir, not like Rabbi Yehuda. We don't paskin like this whole shita here. Even though we understand Rabbi Yehuda's shita about not going to Eretz Yisrael, but like kasha midi, there's no kasha on it. The halacha is like Reb Zeir that it's mutter to go to Eretz Yisrael. Shaharei harif, ve'arash, ve'atur, ve'shulchan aruch, all the poskim heviu la'halacha hachta hakol malin. Afilu bisman hazeh. They all bring down the din of hakol malin.
Right, so
both can force each other.
Right. So contrary to what was said before.
Contrary to the Meir Rottenberg and contrary to Rabbi Yehuda.
And contrary to before that, if we were to allow the wife to force the husband, then we could think that she's doing it for the money, or doing it for niyuf.
Right. That was a pshat that he said to explain the Meir Rottenberg.
So we're still not, even though it seems very, very good reasoning, we shouldn't follow it.
Right, that's just he said that as a pshat in that rishon, but he's still a yachid. That rishon, it's not like any other of the rishonim.
Right, although it seems very reasonable that we should have a takana in case the wife is planning znus or niyuf, or in case the wife wants money from the husband.
Not that she's planning niyuf. That's not what he said. He said that she's just doing it to get out of the marriage in order to marry somebody.
Right, meaning she wants to marry somebody else, or she wants money.
Right.
Etc. etc. So those sounds very good. Still no most strong din reason like that. The whole reason sounds very good.
Yeah. Okay. Gam Haram, the Rami Rottenberg was the one who was mechalik. So Soiver the Alkoponim Beish who came. He at least holds that the husband could force the wife.
For the reason mentioned before, that the husband has to support his wife, and the husband is permitted to other women. So women have to just inspection.
Right. So even he, the point here is that even he agrees that there's a mitzvah to go to Eretz Yisrael, because you see the husband can force the wife at least. who can gam bisman hazeh. This din applies even today. So even according to the Rami Rottenberg, there's a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael bisman hazeh, and therefore we don't go like Rabbi Yehuda. Well, the Rabbi Yehuda ain't zeh ela bisman habayis. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the whole din of forcing anybody is only bisman habayis. So we see all these Rishonim, the whole list that we just brought: the Rif, the Rosh, the Tur, the Shulchan Aruch, and the Rameir Rottenberg. All don't agree with Rabbi Yehuda. They don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Gam Chazinin b'Gemara, and another proof that we hold not like Rabbi Yehuda is we see in the Gemara many stories of people that went to Eretz Yisrael. He's going to say, Kama Amoraim, the Salku mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael, who went up from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, like Ula, Reb Zera, and the Asu Ma'aser Rav, Rav Kahana, the like Rabbi Yehuda. They all paskin not like Rabbi Yehuda.
On the other hand,
it must have held like Reb Zera that a Yachid is allowed to go there.
Right, but on the other hand, many Amoraim moved from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, like Rav Dimi, Zeiri, Shmuel.
Well, it's true that they did that, but it doesn't have any relevance to what we're talking about here. We're trying to prove whether it's mutter or asur to move to Eretz Yisrael.
I see.
Okay, now in the first edition of Vayoel Moshe, which was published a year earlier than this one, 1959 or 58 possibly, the Siman ended here. And then when the Rebbe put this out 2 years later, together with the other two Maamarim, he added on the rest of the Siman here to answer up some people that had tainas on what he wrote. So listen what he writes here. He says, after this was printed, Shamati mefakfakim. I heard that people had doubts about what I wrote. This is I wrote halacha krib zera. Why? Because there's one conspicuously missing posek from this list. Who do you think it is?
Rambam.
Right, the Rambam. Now, what does the Rambam say about this machlokes? So take a look. Shahari mavur bekesef mishneh ilchos malachim soif perek hey al mashakasav Rambam sham. The Rambam says something interesting there at the end of Perek Hey Malachim. He says, "Kashem she'aser lotzeis mei ha'aretz l'chutz la'aretz, kach aser lotzeis mi bavel l'shar ha'ratzos. Shenemar bavela yuvau v'shama yiyu." So the Rambam says, just like it's aser to go from Eretz Yisrael to another place, so too it's aser to go from Bavel to another land, to other lands. And he brings the pasuk of Rabbi Yehuda, "Bavela yuvau v'shama yiyu." There they will stay. Now, if you remember, there are two members of Rabbi Yehuda. There's one that he said on his own, and one that he said in the name of Shmuel. On his own, he said, "Kol ha'ola mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael over ba'aseh." Anyone who goes from Bavel Eretz Yisrael is over on a positive command. Then, on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, he said a different member. He said, "Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, kach aser lotzeis mi Bavel l'shar ha'ratzos." Just like it's aser to go from Eretz Yisrael, it's aser to go from Bavel to shar ha'ratzos. So that member, he doesn't bring any pasuk. So here the Rambam is kind of mixing the two. He's bringing the lashon of Kuf Yud Aleph, but he's bringing the pasuk of Kuf Yud. So what's going on over here? So he says, "The hach member the Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel," the one that he said in the name of Shmuel, Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, she'aser lotzeis mi Bavel, chadahi. The Rambam held that it's one din. It's all one thing. Remember the Rabbi Yehuda Dil'el minei, together with the first Rabbi Yehuda, she'amar kol ha'ola mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael over ba'aseh. The one where he said that anyone who goes to Eretz Yisrael is over ba'aseh. Shenemar b'vala yuvav v'shama yiyu. So that's the Kesef Mishnah talking now. The Kesef Mishnah is saying that the Rambam meant that these two members are the same halacha. So obviously it's going to come out that when he says that it's not allowed to leave Bavel, he means to leave anywhere, even to Eretz Yisrael. The Amorai Basrai Nami Hachi Sfirlu. The Kesef Mishnah says it's mashma that the other Amoraim held like this Rabbi Yehuda on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, and that's why the Rambam paskin like it. So Ad Kan. So Nimsa Lefi Zeh L'Dasa Kesef Mishnah Pasuk Rambam Rabbi Yehuda V'Loi Reb Zera. Comes out the Kesef Mishnah holds that the Rambam paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. I have the Kesef Mishnah copied off here. You can look at it. It's on the first kuntris of Maamar Mekaymis. It's on page. Get it? First kuntris. Here it is, page 5. And I'm not going to go through it inside because we just said it, but we're going to have to look at it soon because of the Lechem Mishnah. So you can get it open, page 5 over here.
Alright, yeah, so the Kesef Mishnah right here, this yellow highlighted, right?
Right. So the Kesef Mishnah says that the Rambam is mixing the two Maamarim of Rabbi Yehuda, and he says, Rabbeinu Kosev HaMemra de Oster Lotzis Mivav L'Shar Rotzos V'Af Eretz Yisrael B'Chlal. The Rambam brings the second Memra and Daf Kufid Aleph, but he brings even Eretz Yisrael is included in it. Mashma Asim B'Gemara, the Amorai Basroi Nami Hachi Stir Lehu. It's Mashma, the other Amoraim agreed with it, so that's why he passed him like it. Okay, so what do we do about this? So, by the way, even if we're going to say like this Rambam, it's not going to be usher to go from a different country to Eretz Yisrael. It's only going to be usher to go from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael.
Right, it only said Bavel.
What? Yeah, it only says Bavel. But Al Kapanim, it still shows that we pass him like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rav Zeir. Okay. So let's see what he answers on this. He says, Aval hinei halechem mishnah sham, hebi das Rashi zal, shekostev behach memra de oster latzis mi Bavel shehum bishvil sheyesh sham yeshivos. But the Mishnah brings that Rashi says in Daf Kufid Aleph that the reason why you can't leave Bavel is because it's not because of the pasuk that they shall go to Bavel and Navi tells them to go to Bavel. It's because it's a place where Yidden live and there's yeshivas and there's Torah, like we saw the Chaznish brought in the first countries. The Chaznish says that it's also to leave Poland.
And Poland's like Eretz Yisrael because it has Torah.
Right, and it's like Bavel. It's all the same idea. A place that's a Torah-dika place, you can't leave. So you can't leave Eretz Yisrael, you can't leave Bavel, you can't leave Poland. Maybe today you can't leave America.
Well, so much for the Zionists anyhow, who can't wait to see America's Torah wiped out.
Yeah. They want everyone to make Aliyah.
Yeah, and you can't wait to see the extinction of communities and Galus. Yeah.
So this is the thing. So the Rashi learns that this memra is nothing to do with Bavela Yuva Ushamayu. It's a din in a place that's a Torah place you can't leave. So it's not going to come out like this Rambam. It's going to come out that if you want to go to Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, you could, because Eretz Yisrael in the time of the Gemara was a Torah place. Yeah. There was Rabbi Yochanan was there. So when Rabbi Zeir went up to Eretz Yisrael, he went to learn by Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shalosh. Okay, so take a look. He says,
but Rav Moshe does say that the Iker to greater Iker wasn't Bavel. That's why Bavel was the Iker Gemara.
Later, it's true. Later, the Eretz Yisrael yeshivas kind of died out, and the Bavel ones took over. Yeah, but at the time of Rabbi Yochanan was just as much of a yeshiva as Rav.
I see.
Okay, I don't know exactly if they were equal or not, but the point is that they were.
But both were able to be cholek on each other on a high enough level.
Right. So now he says, "V'nimsa the less like the Rambam." It comes out that Rashi doesn't hold like the Rambam. The time of Mishum Dichsiv Bavela Yuvo. The Rambam says the time because of the pasuk of Babel Yuvo. The Svilei the Rashi zal the high crab the Babel Yuvo loy have el de lo yalu Eretz Yisrael daika. Rashi holds that pasuk is talking about going to Eretz Yisrael and really from anywhere. Lav dafka from Babel. The point is not Babel. The point is not to go to Eretz Yisrael. Because the Kama Kra ad yoim pakti oisam until the day when I revisit them. The lo yalu me'aleim. They shouldn't go on their own. Aval al ratzos acherois yelchu. But from Babel to other lands, mitzad that pasuk, they would be allowed to go. Ilav taima the yesham yeshivas harbe. If not for the other reason on Daf Kufid Aleph that there are yeshivas in Babel. The heavy rayas b'das Rashi zal, and the Lechem Mishnah brings rayas brings proofs to Rashi. Gam maksha tuva al mashanir midas Rambam dohani trei memers chada. He says he has a lot of kashas on this Rambam. There's mashma, like the Kesef Mishnah says, that the Rambam learns that the two statements of Rabbi Yehuda are one and the same. The Gama Memra Shniya She'aser Latzis Mi Bavel L'Shar Ratzis Hu Mi Time the Krad Bavel Yuvo. That Rambam holds that the second memra of Rabbi Yehuda is also because of the same pasuk. The Imkain, if so, Lama Lo Yamar Le'el Kol HaYotzim Mi Bavel Oiver Basei. If the whole vort was to leave Bavel, the Rambam should have said Kol HaYotzim Mi Bavel Oiver Basei.
What did Rabbi say?
The Gemara. We're talking about the Gemara. Why did Rabbi Yehuda say Kol ha'olam mi Bavel lit Eretz Yisrael oiver ba'asei? Sounds like the main thing is going to Eretz Yisrael. Whereas according to this, the Rambam, it should say Kol ha'yotzim mi Bavel oiver ba'asei. You leave Bavel, you could go anywhere from Bavel. You go to Europe, you're oiver ba'asei. Makes no difference where you go.
Right, so we go anywhere, because if the issue was that it's a place of
Torah, right?
If the issue was, then any place will be out. Just Eretz Yisrael. Because if Bavel is the main Torah place, other places are not places of Torah. That should be the real issue then.
That's the issue. So the issue should be Hayoyte mi Bavel. The issue should not be Oil Eretz Yisrael.
So like, making it sound there's something about Eretz Yisrael itself coming from Bavel.
Right.
As if not just the Torah, it's a Bavel.
Right. So that's the Lechem Mish's Kasha on the Rambam. V'lama Omar Kol Hayoyte mi Bavel Li Eretz Yisrael over Basei. The mashma the Loshar Ratzos Loy. That's mashma that the only problem is Eretz Yisrael, but other places is mutter. The chitem, if you're going to tell me the Ravusa Nakte, that maybe the reason why Rabbi Yehuda said Eretz Yisrael was just for a chiddush. The afil Eretz Yisrael over. That even Eretz Yisrael compared to Bavel is a less Torah place, so even there you're over Basei. If you're going to go with the time of the Torah place, if you're going to go with a different time of Bavel Yuvo, fine. So it's a din to stay in Bavel. That's it. Bavel. Don't leave Bavel. So if that's the pshat, then even Eretz Yisrael and Kol Shekhein in other places. Kol Shekhein l'shar ratzis. Im Kain, if that's the pshat, then Lama Hutzrach Su remember the Aser Latzis mi Bavel l'shar ratzis. Then why did Rabbi Yehuda have to say in Daf Kufid Aleph another statement that it's also to go from Bavel to other lands? Right? If he already told us that it's also to go to Eretz Yisrael, then Kal V'chomer it's also to go to other lands
because they're not even holy.
Right. V'oid herich lahakshos, and the Lechem Mishnah goes on asking questions. V'siyem da'ashmua muchachas kedas Rashi zal. Ayin sham. So the Lechem Mishnah comes out that he holds like Rashi, basically. The
If Bavel is a place of Torah, it shouldn't be a place of Torah.
That what? It's a place of Torah, right. V'nimzel lefi zeh l'choyra, he plugged to ben Rashi ve'Rambam zal. So at least now we have it's a machlokes. Before these people asked on the Rebbe from the Rambam, right? So okay, now at least he's boiled it down that it's a machlokes Rashi and the Rambam. Im lahalacha aser latzis mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael shezeh ikar pluksis Rabbi Yehuda v'Rab Zeir. It's a machlokes if it's allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. Rashi and the Rambam. And by the way, I said before that even the Rambam would agree that it's mutter to go from Europe to Eretz Yisrael or America to Eretz Yisrael. He's just talking about Bavel.
So, from what the point of view is.
Right. But Al Kapanim, you see, it's a machlokes Rashi and the Rambam, at least for now. However, be'emes gam b'divrei Rambam zal, he says, even in the Rambam we can say a different pshat, not like the Kesef Mishnah's pshat. Masha hevin ha-Kesef Mishnah b'kavanasai, shegam l'Eretz Yisrael aser, hu dvar tema. It's unbelievable to learn that way, that the Rambam meant that even Eretz Yisrael is aser. Kasher, and he's kasher b'zel Lechem Mishnah. As we just saw, the Lechem Mishnah asked. Gam ha-Marit b'soif ksubas, cost of the mehach memra the aser latzis mi Bavel l'shar ratzis. The Marit's going to say that it's mashma not like the Rambam because it says you're not allowed to go to other lands. Other lands is mashma not Eretz Yisrael. Mashma de Eretz Yisrael mutter. V'hanach tarti memra lav chalahi. So you see, clear these two statements are not the same. Elahadi de v'had Rabbi. One of them was his own, and one of them was his Rabbi Shmuel's statement. Because of Achakach, the Marit says later, the yesh tema ala Rambam shekasta b'hach de aser latzes mi Bavel l'shar ratzes shehumi time the krad Babel yuvo. He says the same thing we've been asking all this time. How could the Rambam say that the reason why it's not allowed to leave Bavel is because of the pasuk she'ein tam zeh ela le'eretz Yisrael? Meaning that time of the pasuk Babel yuvo is a din in Pekida. Be in Bavel and don't come out until the exile is over, until Hashem revisits you. But not to go to other places. That pasuk doesn't ask her to go from Babel to Europe. So why should it be asked? Because of Oid Kushas al Divrei Rambam B'Zev Aloy Tir It's Me'uma Union Sham. The Maharit also doesn't like the Rambam. He's also has this very big problem. Uva Hagois Emek Hamelech Me'agoin Hakadosh Morenu Reb Abish Mi Frankfurt the Main. There's an interesting statement. It's in the back of the Rambam, and I have it copied off here in this country.
So was Abish Me Frankfurt was the Rav who wrote it?
He was the Rav who wrote it. It's a small commentary in the back of the regular Rambams that we have.
Was this the Rishon or Achron?
He's an Achron, and he is from the 1700s.
So a late one then.
He's a middle Achron.
1700 late Achron. Yeah, okay.
And if anybody knows the story of the Cleaver Get. You ever heard the story of the Cleaver Get? There was a famous get that all the Rabbanim of Europe argued about in the 1760s, I think. So this story, Rabbi Avram Abish from Frankfurt was on one side. He held the get was puzzle. All the Rabbanim of Europe held the get was kasha. There was a big machlokes over whether the lady was allowed to remarry.
And how did the story end?
They say the story ended that the husband and wife got back together again. Because the issue was that the husband claimed to be, he acted insane, and then he gave a get while he was insane. So the question is whether it was a kosher get or not. Then eventually he came back and got married to her again.
So where do I look?
So on page 2, in this week's Maamar, over here, this one.
Right here.
Second page.
Sure.
First page I just copied off that from Siman Zion. We didn't speak of that, but that was the Ran and the Darn. Anyway, over here on page 2, the Emek HaMelech. If you take a look, it's on the right side here. The Kesef Mishnah. It's like it says Halach Yud Beis, and then it says a couple lines down B'Chaf Mem Kesef Mishnah. He says L'Shar Ratzos.
Your highlighted part?
Yeah, it's the highlighted part.
Yeah.
Ule'el Meha. He says Tzarech Ian. He brings the Kesef Mishnah that says that the Rambam holds that the two members are one, and he says Tzarech Ian the Mavur Nira B'Gemara the Haid Omer Rav Yehuda Mishmei Shmuel V'Hai Omer Mishmei Nafshei. He says these two members are not the same. One's in the name of Shmuel and one's in the name of himself. Upali Bar Reb Zera argues on the first one that he said in the name of himself. Uvamai the Omer Mishmei Shmuel Hu the Kaimi Amorai Kavase. And when we find Amoraim holding like Rabbi Yehuda, like the Kesef Mishnah says, that's only in the second member that he said in the name of Shmuel, that you're not allowed to leave Bavel. V'zu das Rabbeinu. That's what the Rambam meant. Okay, so he says the Rambam didn't mean what the Kesef Mishnah says he means. He's saying the Rambam meant only the pasuk like the second member. The Rambam wouldn't have kept quiet and not told us that it's not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. So from the fact that the Rambam doesn't say that, he just says, Asur Lot says mi Bavel, l'shar Ratzos. He doesn't say Afilu Eretz Yisrael. So if it would have been Afilu Eretz Yisrael, the Rambam would have said so. It doesn't say so. It means that it's also to go to other places, but it's mutter to go to Eretz Yisrael. He says, Devadei lo yav shasik. He wouldn't have been quiet. Ela deloi pasuk kavase. The Rambam doesn't pass like the first Rabbi Yehuda. V'chein kama maisim muchichim deloi Rabbi Yehuda. Many stories in the Gemara about people going to Eretz Yisrael. U'miyata kushis alecha mishnah chazaka. There's a big kasha that this lecha mishnah asks. Ve'ein loymar. Basically, the kasha is that why did the Rambam bring the pasuk of Bavel Yuvo if he's talking about the second one? He says ve'ein loymar. He's marich over here. I don't want to read everything, but people can take a look. This is where he discusses this kasha. So Vayoel Moshe quotes him here. He says Tama. He's asked to kasha al Kesef Mishnah. The cost of the Vadai loy have shastik Rabbeinu milash meinu chiddush zeh. The after Eretz Yisrael lo yala. Elodoi pasuk kavase. It's clear that the Ram didn't paskin like the first Rav Yehuda. V'chein kam ma'asim mechichim delay Rav Yehuda. El b'memra shnia. Shalom Mishmei the Shmuel Shaloi Latzei the Shar Ratzos Hu the Kaimi Amorai Kavase. We only hold like the second member. V'zu das Rabbeinu. Aval Ba'aliyah mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael Loi pasuk Rav Yehuda Elok Reb Zera. He doesn't pasuk like Rav Yehuda. He pasuk like Reb Zera that it's mutter for a yachid. Ela denis kasha acher kach letarit kushet alecha mishnah chazaka v'siyim b'tzarachiyun. The Emek HaMelech ends off that it's shver. This Rambam. The pasuk he brings doesn't match the din that he's saying.
It's unclear on therefore.
Right.
So what? So many first were confused on the Rambam himself on this.
Right.
Well,
it's very confusing. The Kesef Mishnah has a point. The Rambam brings the pasuk Bavel Yuvo, so it sounds like we paskin like the first Rabbi. Yeah. What?
Okay, so from Bavel, you're not to leave Bavel there just show. So it's strange. If Bavel was the issue of Makam Torah, why only Yisrael? Other places too. It was like the Mishnah was saying.
Why only Eretz? No. What do you mean? Echanami. Other places are for sure Aser.
For sure, almost. Right, as I was saying before. If Bavel is the issue of the place of Torah, you leave Bavel. You go to Eretz, there's less Torah. Kol in other places. So why only Eretz Yisrael? So
why only Eretz Yisrael? Well, that was the kasha for the first member. But the Rambam brought the second member. That's not a problem. The problem is the pasuk he brings. He mixes and matches. He brings the second member, but he brings the first member's pasuk. That's the problem.
Right, and there's confusion. If it's Bavel, that's the place of Torah is Bavel itself, like the pasuk says.
Yeah,
because the pasuk was clearly not referring to the Bavel, the place. It was just clearly the Gzer at the time of Yirmiyahu Navi.
Yeah. Okay. Uve Sefer Nishmas Kol Chai Me'agoin HaChabif. This is Reb Chaim ben Yaakov Palaji. He was in the 1800s, a Rav in Turkey, in Smyrna.
Palaji sounds more Italian.
Right, but he was the famous Sephardi Rav. He's the Chacham Bashi, chief rabbi of Turkey. So he wrote a lot of Sfarim, and one of the Sfarim is called Nishmas Kol Chai, and he says Siman Mem Tes Hechlit Deloi Kaim Lon Rav Yehuda. He says we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, ela kreb zera. Okay, because of vizel shainai. Da afilu Rambam, the pasuk perk hey milchus malachim she'aser latzis mibavel l'shar ratzis. Even the Rambam who does bring down a shtikol Rabbi Yehuda, lav Eretz Yisrael b'chlal. He doesn't mean Eretz Yisrael. Shari motzinu b'kamur amoraim the alu v'loy hishkichu b'zeh. We find many amoraim who went to Eretz Yisrael. Umasha Kostev Moran Bekestev Mishnah. This is what the Kesef Mishnah says, that the Rambam did paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, the Eretz Yisrael b'chlal. He says, Acher ha-mechila ru'uya, after asking mechila from the Kesef Mishnah, near the Lesta. I think it's not true. I think the Rambam doesn't mean like that. This is the Reb Chaim Palaji talking.
Well, he's arguing with the Kesef Mishnah?
Yeah.
So Kesef Mishnah was like in his times or before?
Before. The Kesef Mishnah was the 1500s.
Right, so he's arguing
in the 1800s. So he's asking mechila from the Kesef Mishnah, but basically he says it doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't agree with him. So
far, basically, we have the Rabbi Abraham Abish from Frankfurt disagreeing with the Kesef Mishnah, and we have the Reb Chaim Palaji disagreeing. Okay. The Havalei Lifsaik, he says, if the Kesef Mishnah would have been correct, the Rambam should have paskin the Ha'olam Mibavel Eretz Yisrael over Ba'aseh. He should have said explicitly Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam didn't say that, so it's.
What were the exact Rambam's words?
The Rambam's words are Kashem she'aser latzes me ha'aretz l'chutz la'aretz.
Yes.
Kach aser latzes mi bavel l'shar aratzos.
But not to Eretz Yisrael.
It's mashma not Eretz Yisrael, because otherwise he would have said so, right?
Right, he'll say it openly.
Now, Gama Yavitz, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, B'Siduroi, also 1700s, in his Siddur. He has a lot of halachas in his Siddur, and he says, B'Hakdama, in the introduction there, Hechlit she'ein halachak Rabbi Yehuda. We don't paskin that it's also to go there to Israel. Ela shel shaynai tzarchian. It's a little bit shver. His lashon aval hevi mikama mekoymes b'shas harba amoraim ein mispar she'asu ma'asev v'nasu mibav l'Eretz Yisrael. We bring many, countless stories of Amoraim who went there to Israel. In Kain kulam stavik Rabbi Zera. They all held like Rabbi Zera. So that's a raya that we paskin like Rabbi Zera. V'zev v'adai raya she'ein aliyah she'ein aleha tshuva. It's a raya that has no answer to it that we paskin like Rabbi Zera. Uv'shas lo ira b'shum makom mikol oisna mekoyim sheheviu ma'aser rav me'anoisim mibav l'Eretz Yisrael. We never find the Gemara mentioning anything when an Amoyer goes to Eretz Yisrael that this is against Rabbi Yehuda's Shita.
Right, you're right. That we don't find, and at the same time, we don't ever find those who ever show they were criticized.
Right. Just
like they tried to use it to their advantage, that many Amoraim, left Baal Eretz Yisrael and weren't criticized. But on the other hand, many left Eretz Yisrael but weren't criticized.
Right, that's true too. But the point is that it's not asked to go. So how could you push aside this raya and say, like the Kesef Mishnah says, that we don't paskin like
so
this?
So these later Acharonim already in the 1700s were strolling in with the Kesef Mishnah views. I see.
But we still need to answer, even according to them, we still need to answer Hakusha Chazaka. The big kasha here, Masha Hevi Rambam al Ze'akra de Bavel Yuvo. The Rambam brought the wrong pasuk l'choyer. The Rambam brought the pasuk from the first member. Shemavur begamor dekay al Eretz Yisrael. V'zeh kusha samarit u'shar mefarshim. That was the main kasha that all the mefarshim had. V'nir shezeh time shel Kesef Mishnah. That's also the Kesef Mishnah's reason for pasking like Rabbi Yehuda. Shehevi midivrei Rambam shegam Eretz Yisrael b'chlal. K'divrei Rabbi Yehuda midahevi al Ze'akra de Bavel Yuvo. From the fact that the Rambam brings that pasuk. So now he's going to say a new answer to answer up that question. He says, Omnam lefi mashakasev be'iyun Yaakov mibal Shevuos Yaakov al ho'ein Yaakov. A pirush on ein Yaakov called the iyun Yaakov. The mashal lamad Rav Yehuda mehach kra de she'aser latzes mibavel Eretz Yisrael hu me'reish dekra. So basically what he's going to say is that there's two halves of the pasuk. Bavela yuvahu means
come to Bavel.
Yeah, and don't go to Eretz Yisrael. That's one part of the memra. And then the second half is V'shama yiyu, and not go to other lands. So he splits it up. He says one half of the pasuk is for Rabbi Yehuda's first din, and the other one is for the second din. And the Rambam passed like the second din, and he brought the pasuk. That's what he's going to say. He says, the drasha shniya shalamad she'aser latzes mibavel shar ratzos. This second drasha, he misayfer dekra. It comes from the end of the pasuk because of shama yiyu. There they will be shehum miyuter, which is an extra 2 words. The havalei lichtov babel yuvo ad yoim pakti oisam. It should say they will be in Babel and be brought there and stay there until I revisit them. Why does it have to say they will the shama yiyu? There they will be. It's coming for an extra drasha. That you can't go out to other lands. It's a shtickle problem, the lashon there, but basically that's what he's saying.
What he's saying, in other words, what's in short, what's being said here? That
the pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda brought, Bavela Yuvahu Shama Yiyu, really teaches us two things. It teaches us it's not allowed to go from Babel to Eretz Yisrael. That's the first Rabbi Yehuda. And then it teaches us that it's also to go from Babel to any place in the world. That's Shama Yiyu. And in that second half, we paskin like him, not the first half.
The first is you can't leave Babel to any part of the world?
Right. But Eretz Yisrael, we don't paskin like him.
That you could do,
So, and it still comes from the same pasuk, which explains why the Rambam was able to bring that pasuk. He says, "Aval efshel yashiv b'derech zeh das Rambam lefi das kama gedolim delay sabri kesem mishnah." According to these achronim that we brought here, that don't hold like the kesem mishnah, el kapir shel amarit devahach member shel asru lotzis mibavel l'shar rotzis ein Eretz Yisrael b'chlal. When Rabbi Yehuda says it's not allowed to go to other lands, he means except for Eretz Yisrael. Umash kosav Rambam al zeh. That's the second Rabbi Yehuda, by the way. Umash kosav Rambam. This that the Rambam brings down the first pasuk, the very same pasuk from the first member. Ein zu hadrasha de Rabbi Yehuda shalamad mireisha de Bavel Yuvo. The Bavel Yuvo. It's not from the first half of the pasuk Bavel Yuvo. She'asu walos Eretz Yisrael. That's not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Bozel loy kaim alon kavase. In that aspect, we don't hold like him. Ela krib zeira machmas kama sugis hashas. Shahar b'amuroy masu ma'iserav lalos Eretz Yisrael vein poitz apel mitzavtzev. We said before, many Amoraim went to Eretz Yisrael, nobody protested. What we do paskin like is the second drasha that he said in the name of Shmuel. That's not allowed to go other places. That's learned out from the second half. The Kra. In that aspect, the Rambam holds like him. Because in that Isser we find other Amoraim besides just Rabbi Yehuda who said it. The Sabri Kavasi. Rambam Zal, when the Rambam writes it down, Hetik al zeh kol hakra. He copies down the whole pasuk. But really, the Kavanah Sayal Sefer. Really, he means the end. Sefer the Kra shall yitur the Shama Yiyu. Canal. Like I said before. Basically, he means only the Sefer of the pasuk, even though he quotes the whole pasuk. Ula halacha, and just to wrap things up, he says, La halacha hine afa kesef mishnah. Even according to the kesef mishnah, shehevi midvarav she'asir lotzis mibav l'Eretz Yisrael, kedas Rav Yehuda, zeh vadai she'ein zeh mevur b'divrei Rambam. It's not explicitly like that in the Rambam. Ela shediak came the oisa hachacha shehevi akra b'avel yuvo. It's only from the fact that the Rambam quotes that pasuk. So he's going to say basically here that when you have two Rishonim saying different things, but one of them is beferish and one of them is not beferish. One of them is only a diuk. You go like the one that's beferish, because even though the Rambam may be against Rashi, maybe we go like the Rambam. But in this case, it's not a beferish Rambam. It's only a diuk in the Rambam. He says, "V'das Rashi zal b'vadei she'ein mekain k'mashu kosav lechem mishnah." Rashi for sure doesn't hold like this Rambam. Ukvar hevi Beis Yosef be'orchaim Siman Kuf Nun Tes me'atrumas adeshin. Beis Yosef brings down a rule in Psak from the Trumas Edeshin to the plug to the Rabbi Basa. When you have a machlokes in the Rishonim, af b'makom dekayim l'an naktinim l'kula, even in a place like where like let's say the Rabbanan dekadinim, where you want to go to kula, you want to be lenient. Mikol makom ma'ida ashkachna b'piskei agoyin behedya. When you find one going, one Rishon, let's say like Rashi, holding one way. And you don't find anybody else saying explicitly against him. It's only a diuk. Only a raya that he holds that way. You can't go and knock down the other Rishon who's a beferish Rishon, like Rashi. Besides with the fact that many people don't hold it the Kesef Mishnah, they even explain the Rambam that also holds like this, the Soiva Kribzeira, Rambam. Aside from the words of the Rambam says, doesn't say Eretz Yisrael. And many stories all over Shas. Therefore I wrote that the halacha is like Reb Zera and not like Rav Yehuda. Okay. Good? Shkoyach.